Welcome to the Farmstead Farm Podcast, your southern hub for all things homesteading. Today, we're diving into raising backyard broilers, from choosing breeds and feeding tips to managing mess and prepping for processing day. Whether you're on a farm or in a suburban backyard, we've got you covered. And joining us is special guest Allie Loafman, here to share her experience and insight. Let's jump in. Welcome back to the Farmstead Farm Podcast, your southern hub for all things homesteading. Today, I'm joined by Allie Loafman as we dig into raising backyard broilers, from breed selection and feed to reducing smell in suburban spaces and preparing for harvest day. We'll walk you through brooder to freezer with helpful slides and winches along the way. Come grow with us today. Welcome, Allie, onto the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah. So this is our second take, you guys. We are dedicated and here to give y'all this wonderful show today. Thank you, Allie, for bearing with me. We have some technical issues on the Faulkner side a lot of the time, so thank you for coming back on.
Absolutely. I'm glad to be here.
Okay, so I'm going to get right into the content. And first, I just want to share a disclaimer that nothing of the information we share today is for educational purposes only, shouldn't be taken as personal, medical, or any sort of legal personal advice. And so now that we've got that out of the way, okay, what is the difference between raising laying hens and meat birds, if there is a difference?
That is a good question. I feel like here on our homestead, and just for any listeners out there, we are located in hot, humid Georgia here in the South. So my approach to raising meat birds and laying hens might not work for everywhere and every climate. But if you are somewhere where it's hot, like we are here in Georgia, I find there isn't much of a difference in laying hens and meat birds, and we actually brood them in our chicken tractor all together, all at the same time. And when the laying hens get old enough, we take them out and put them with our main flock, and then the meat birds, we just continue them on pasture around our house.
Joining us is special guest
we operate
here to share
off the permaculture principle of zones, so we try to keep that chicken tractor straight on the grass and near our house, so that when we have to go out there twice a day to feed and water our meat birds, they're super close. But yeah, I would say on our homestead, there's not a huge difference between meat birds and laying hens.
Yeah, that's super important. Like you're saying, keep it close to your house, because out of sight, out of mind, right? Mm-hmm. If you're, and I would think it'd be better for predator pressure too, that if it's closer to your house, coyotes and stuff are less likely to come into your yard and tear open your chicken tractor.
Absolutely. Yeah, we've found that, like you said, keeping them close to the house like that, we've had very little predator pressure. I think in the beginning, when we first moved here and we had first built our chicken tractor, we did have like a raccoon, and this is grim, but it was a raccoon, a possum, something like pulled one of our meat birds like through the chicken wire that we have around the sides of the chicken tractor. So we had to kind of do some retroactive troubleshooting with that, and we put like boards around it just to make it more secure. But yeah, I definitely agree, having them close to the house is huge when it comes to saving your chickens from raccoons.
Is that the only predator you've had thus far? Maybe besides like y'all's dog?
Yeah, our dog, there was definitely a learning curve with our dog, but he seems to be pretty acclimated now. We've dealt with raccoons at our last property, and I think one time we saw an owl, which was interesting. I don't know if the owl got any of our chickens, but it looked like it was casing the joint. So
yeah,
but knock on wood, we've had pretty good luck here in terms of predators.
The hawks out here are crazy. I was going to check my baby goats several months ago, and there was a red-tailed hawk that was perched like on this inside of the little shelter that I had made for the goats. And I was like, are you kidding me right now? This hawk's going to go after goats. Okay, you better have some big talents to carry that baby goat off. And the poor babies looked like they were, had just been fighting for their life. Like the water was overturned. Like that hawk had somehow gotten in there. Anyways, off the topic. Okay. Okay, let's talk about the feed. So, I guess if you brood your laying hens and meat birds together, then you use the same chick starter feed.
Yep. Yeah. And, I'm sure there is like a textbook right way to do things. I think I have heard before that like meat bird chicks maybe need higher protein, but we've just found like in our everyday practice here on the homestead that we feed both the laying hen chicks and the meat bird chicks just the same feed that we buy. And we actually get a feed that we love called Nature Crest. And I would highly recommend that if you can get it at your local feed store. It just seems like a really high quality, non GMO chicken feed. And we've had great success on that feed.
I think it's better to keep it simple. I mean, why would you have to buy, and then you'd have to have another brooder for your hens if you have to give them separate feed, I imagine, or put some kind of a little partition
Mm.
in the, so just keep it simple. I like it.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, okay. Now, how did the ordering process go for your chicks? 'Cause I
So,
know at one point recently it was pretty difficult. They were having some shortages. I don't know if it's due to the
yeah,
bird
and
flu.
I ran into that. I guess that was about 3 or 4 months ago. I don't know if you can share anything about why it seems like there were shortages at the hatcheries. And we order our laying hens through Murray McMurray. And then I think I have some meat birds coming from Freedom Ranger. But yeah, I found that odd that there seemed to be a shortage of chicks.
So this is through the grapevine because I've actually never ordered chicks myself, but I know I was listening to Shop Talk. It's another homesteading podcast. It's all men on there, but I like to listen to what they're doing on their homesteads. And he was saying that they placed their order like back in October, and then they got a email or something from McMurray in the spring saying that their order was canceled, even though they'd pre-ordered. They just had a shortage and they had to cancel several orders. So I think they did attribute it somehow to the bird flu. I guess I don't know. I don't think, in general, from my understanding, that the bird flu affects the smaller hatcheries. But anytime you get a bunch of chickens in a small environment, whether they're chicks or I mean, it could happen. I can see how it could happen. But that's what they were claiming. Somehow, I don't know if they were having to get rid of birds or if it was like something governmental involved. I have no idea, so I can't speak on exactly, but I do know that some homesteaders that had planned months in advance got this email saying, sorry, you had to cancel your order. And it was around the time the government was trying to, talk about bird flu. So imagine that has something to do with it. But
Interesting. I hope that's not an issue kind of now because we would like to get some more laying chicks. And I mean, even at Tractor Supply, I feel like every time you go into Tractor Supply, they have chicks. And it was like around that time, like there were no chicks even in these little, brick and mortar stores. So
yeah,
that was crazy.
yes, people were having a hard time getting them. Even there, they would run out within like a matter of days. That's what one
Mm-hmm.
of the store owners told me. So you did mention Freedom Ranger as far as a breed. Have you which type of breeds would you suggest people look into if they were going to raise meat
Yeah.
birds?
So in my experience, we have done the Cornish cross meat birds, and that was our first meat bird that we ever raised here on the homestead and processed, and it was absolutely amazing just how quickly those birds reached butcher size. I mean, it was 8 weeks, and they were like ready to go. They were barely moving around, and it's wild. They go through so much food, so much water, and they produced delicious chicken. I mean, we probably raised hundreds of pounds of chicken that we put in our deep freezer just from those. I think it was 15 Cornish cross that we raised. So the Cornish cross, they're an amazing breed. I think they get a lot of flack for being so fast growing, but they were just, in our experience, very dependable, easy to grow out. It was a very straightforward process. And the second meat birds that we have are actually still in our yard. They are ready to be harvested. this week or this weekend. So we need to get on that. They're called Dorking. That's Dorking. I thought that was such an
Sorry,
interesting
that's
name.
that's kind of a funny, makes you laugh.
Yeah, it's a weird name. They're a heritage breed. So, and they seem to be like on the other end of the spectrum from the Cornish cross. It's like the Cornish cross is like very straightforward. It couldn't be easier. With these Dorking breeds, they're so much noisier and messier. They take so much longer to grow out. They don't eat as much food. I don't know if that's like a hallmark of heritage breeds,
I think they
but it's
do,
just
from what I've heard, they do tend to forage more. They tend
Mhm.
to, get more of the grubs and stuff as you're moving the tractor.
Yeah, I can definitely see that. So we've now experienced two extremes where it's like the commercial Cornish cross and then this like very, rare heritage breed. And maybe on our third attempt we'll try something more in the middle. But so Cornish cross, if you are new to raising chickens, I would definitely suggest them as a beginner meat bird.
Now, how long are your Dorkings going to take to grow out, or did they take?
So I think what I read about them was they take more like 12 weeks to
Okay.
reach kind of optimal weight. I think we've had them maybe closer to 14 weeks. So they're a little bit over, I think, the optimal, but I don't think there's really a big deal if you go a little bit before, a little bit after kind of that optimal range.
Yeah, just as long as it's what I guess what do they have to be about 4 to 5 pounds for, you to say that they're harvest weight.
Yeah, I would think, 4 to 5 pounds would probably be what you're kind of aiming for.
So as long as they reach that by the time it's harvest day, it's okay to wait a little while longer because you
Yeah,
certainly want to get as much as you can out of them.
definitely.
Okay, and so we talked about the Freedom Rangers. You've ordered those. Is that for the upcoming workshop? You ordered that breed?
Yeah, so I'll have to check. I thought the hatchery that we ordered them from was called Freedom Ranger, but I might have that wrong, thinking of the breed of the chicken.
I think I've
Because
heard of Freedom.
around the time we were planning this workshop for the Farmstead Forum, that was like when the shortage was. So I couldn't
Yes.
go to my old reliable McMurray. Yeah, it's called Freedom Ranger Hatchery. So for that workshop coming up, we ordered 30 Cornish cross.
Okay,
So
good.
that'll be a very like straightforward, just easy to raise out. And Cornish cross is really like the chicken that everybody knows and loves, like that you get at the grocery store. So that was another thing. We were like, we don't want anything weird colors, or we just want the
Yes.
stuff we get at the grocery store. So that's
Except
definitely and
it's much healthier because it's been foraging in your yard as opposed to being cooped up in no daylight and
oh my
no
gosh.
access to
Exactly. I was
fresh
talking to my
grass.
husband. Yeah. I mean, all of that. It's night and day, the difference in taste and quality between store-bought chicken and something that you grow sustainably in your yard. I mean, and I'm one of those people who I've found through homesteading. I always hear people talking about homegrown eggs taste so much better. They're so different. Or a homegrown tomato. Well, maybe a homegrown tomato is noticeably better. But like with the eggs, I haven't really noticed that they're like that different. But when I tried our homegrown chicken for the first time, I was like, this is insane. I mean, it couldn't have been more different. It tasted so much cleaner. Even like the look of the meat looked like whiter, like somehow cleaner. And I think it's what you said, the commercially grown chicken, like they're basically just wading around in their own feces for
Filth,
their
yes.
entire lives. And I think I talked about this in one of my YouTube videos, but you have to wonder, like, is it possible for that like heavy nitrogen rich manure to like seep into their skin and like get into their bones? Because I think about that when I'm boiling chicken bones from chicken that I bought in the store. It's like, okay, maybe eating chicken off the bone is fine, but to like boil commercially grown chicken bones for stock is really just extracting all that kind of nastiness out of the chicken. And I think that right there is reason enough to like try your hand at raising your own chicken just because it's so much cleaner and they have better lives.
Yes, for sure. And for those of you, if you have not watched the documentary called Food Inc. on YouTube, you need to go look that up. It's an old documentary. It's like from the 80s, but it does talk about how our food industry currently runs. So if you're kind of in the dark about where your food comes from, it's an eye opener for sure. Joel Salatin is featured in that video and talks about how his, farm operation is different, doing pastured poultry and grass fed beef. And it's just a lot cleaner and more humane in that way. Okay.
Interesting. I'll have to check that. Is that on Netflix, did you say, or is that on YouTube?
I found it on YouTube. It's a good one.
Okay. Awesome.
And you'll never eat McDonald's if you watch that.
My gosh. Okay.
I don't eat McDonald's anyways, but when I watched that, I was like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I never knew.
Do you find yourself lonely on this homesteading journey? Join us for the Fall Farmstead Forum Conference, November 7th and 8th. It's a 2-day event that you don't want to miss. Get your tickets now from the event section on our website. Use code ALLCAPSEARLYBIRD at checkout for a limited time discount. This offer ends September 1st. Would you like the VIP experience? Get exclusive lounge access, the speaker's lunch social, a swag bag, and more. Secure your spot today.
Okay, and then the place where you buy your chicks from, what was was it Freedom Rangers is where you found chicks? And then there's, of course,
yes,
McMurray's.
So, yeah, Murray McMurray, definitely. And then during that shortage, Freedom Rangers, they still had chicks. So I don't.
And of course, you can always chance going to Tractor Supply, but they don't generally carry meat birds. They just have laying hens. So if you go in the meat bird route, you have to find one of these smaller hatcheries and plan ahead for sure. But build your tractor first. Don't order your chicks, because then what I've heard will happen is inevitably your tractor will not be built and you will end up, having no place to put them because they grow so quick. They will outgrow your brooder very fast. So
yeah, and speaking of like the logistics of really being ready for your meat birds, I feel like before I got my meat birds, the idea of ordering them through the mail was like totally, I mean, that's still like kind of crazy, just saying it out loud. Like the fact that you can get chicks delivered to you in the mail is wild. Then I remember I would watch people like Justin Rhodes, and they would get a call from the post office when their meat birds were there. And so that's kind of how I had it in my mind. I was like, okay, so like the post office is going to call me, like they'll get my number off the invoice.
That makes you feel good. Like, who wants to depend on the government?
Yeah. And in reality, I never got the call. So like the first time I got my meat birds delivered, I had just so happened to like track my invoice number through their online system. And I was like, oh God, they're there. Like I need to go. So it just so happened to like work out fine. But I don't know, not everybody gets a phone call from the post office. So you have to be kind of like checking around the time that they're going to be delivered. And I will also say that before you leave to go to the post office, because they don't ship them to your front door, they ship them to your local post office. But before you go pick them up at the post office, make sure that you take the time to like turn on the heat lamp, get their water, get their food all squared away before you put them in the brooder. Because when you get them home, it's like adrenaline is pumping. You can't find the extension cord. They're freezing in the box. Like that's just a pro tip, is like get everything squared away so that you can come home and immediately put them in their warm, safe spot.
Okay, I'm glad you mentioned the water. Have you heard of Justin Rhodes' magic water recipe?
Yes, I have. We haven't tried that yet. I don't know why we haven't. It seems like a wonderful idea, but our chicks, like we've had very good survival rate. What is in that magic water?
So I linked a YouTube video in the show notes, but all it is like a quarter cup of apple cider vinegar, like an eighth of a cup of local honey, raw honey, and then like 2 big heaping teaspoons of garlic, like minced garlic. And then you just like swirl it around and then fill up your half-gallon mason jar with water. Like the rest of it's water. It seems simple, but I've heard some of my homesteading buddies use that and swear by it. So just FYI for those of you, if you're interested in looking it up, it is on YouTube.
Yeah,
and in the show notes
we'll
too.
have to try that magic water.
Okay, so a plan for processing on harvest day. So once your birds get to harvest weight, what kind of supplies did you find the most helpful to have? Do you really need a plucker? What did you find as far as and two being affordable? Because sometimes if you start adding up the price of all this, it can get overwhelming.
Yeah, definitely. You start to ask yourself, like, how much went into this whole setup and how much is chicken at the store? But I will definitely say you don't need a plucker. But at the same time, a plucker is really amazing. And it takes a 30-minute step and it whittles it down to like 30 seconds. It's amazing what a plucker can do. For some reason, I have it in my head that we need to like gruel and suffer before we can like have the luxury of a plucker. So I did make my husband pluck all 15 of our first meat birds by hand after dunking them in the boiling water to loosen their feathers. And I think at this point we've earned a plucker. We still don't have one. But actually, Emily, you introduced us to some local friends and they have an amazing setup. They have a plucker. They have like a they can just like set the water temperature and it's like stays constant. So we'll be going over there to process our meat birds because it seriously, when you have a good setup and you've invested in the right materials, it takes it from a weekend long process to like a couple hours. But I will encourage anybody who's just starting out, like do get the bare minimum, like don't sink a lot of money into it because you might find that like it's just not for you and you'd rather support a local farmer that is raising pastured chicken, and that's totally fine too. But you don't need all the fancy equipment, and I would say if you've raised meat birds twice, then maybe you can think about getting a plucker just to make your life easier. But our first time, we plucked the feathers by hand, and we just had like a camp stove, a propane tank, and we did invest in sharp knives because I think just ethically to end their lives as quickly as possible, a sharp knife is a humane knife, as Justin Rhodes has taught me. And I think investing in a kill cone is also pretty important because it kind of just keeps them snug and holds them and just makes them freak out a little bit less. So it's like less traumatizing for everybody involved.
Yeah, and I think those aren't very expensive. Like I've seen the kill cones on Amazon for like 15 to 30 bucks.
Yeah.
So I think I linked that too in the show notes for y'all. And then as far as your pot, like did you just I think you told me you used a big stock pot and there's like kits for that too they come with everything like the burner, the boiler, the pot and everything and the thermometer.
Yeah, and definitely a stock pot. It was something I was trying to like go to thrift stores and find, but unfortunately those are just like kind of hard to come by. So we did invest in a big, huge stock pot. And I mean, that's honestly you need a very large pot to like dunk them in the water, which loosens their feathers. So I would say knives, a kill cone, and a large stock pot are really all you need. And you can pretty much like scavenge for the rest of the stuff. I mean, we used an old table and then just having like soap. You want to keep everything hygienic and a cooler with ice because you want to get those birds pretty cold as quickly as possible. And yeah.
Okay. And then also, did y'all use the shrinking bags, like the heat? I think they're heat sensitive. Like as soon as you dunk them in the hot water, it closes up around the bird. Did y'all get those?
Yes, we did. And it's pretty cool. Like it comes with like a little straw so that you can just dunk them in the water and it just shrink wraps around the bird. And so I mean, I don't know if that's totally necessary, but that's kind of a nice presentation wise thing to have. And I would definitely recommend those.
So let me ask you a question because you went and helped, like you were talking about at the Denny farm. I don't think they mind me saying their last name. Them when they processed the meat birds. Did you have any takeaways on how they did things? Maybe a little different. Did you see any benefits to them having like a group set up as far as your experience with that?
Yeah, it's pretty much the process is kind of the process, like no matter where you are. But I will say that Patrick, I think at one point this is, if I feel like anybody who's watching this isn't kind of grossed out easily, but the person who is in charge of slitting the necks of the meat birds, I think at one point almost took the whole head. And I remember Patrick was like, hey, like try not to do that because it like taints the meat somehow. And I thought that was interesting because my husband was taking the whole head off of every meat bird that we harvested because we just thought like, you know, it was our first time. We wanted to be like as humane as possible. And we thought like, if we just take the whole head, like they can't suffer at all. They still move around quite a bit, which is something that I feel like nobody really talks about. Like they move around a lot longer than a few seconds. Like it's more like 30 seconds to a minute. So that was shocking. But I thought that was interesting that he said that. So I think moving forward, we will slit the throats and let the blood drain into a bucket and then use that blood to build our soil at our house. So yeah, definitely doing that processing with them in their amazing setup under a tent, out of the sun early in the morning. It just taught us just how much quicker and more efficient it can all go when you've invested in the equipment and you have the right setup. And yeah, they were awesome there. So I'm glad that you introduced us. Thank you.
Well, you start meeting people and, you know, you find your buddies in the homesteading community. That's what it should all be about. Finding like-minded people, helping each other, you know, processing day should be like a group effort, in my opinion. Definitely makes it go faster when you have like an assembly line of people, and bonus if you get to take home a little bit of the bounty, right?
Absolutely.
Plus you learn something.
Yeah. And I was thinking a lot today about just this lifestyle, this homesteading lifestyle, and how it adds so much value to like so many different aspects of your life. I mean, I was talking to my husband about how crazy it is to think about how far removed human beings have become from their food, and how they're 100, 200 years ago, there was so much more of a built-in checks and balances of like calories in versus calories out. I mean, people used to hunt and gather for all the food that they ate. And there's an intrinsic balance there when you have to put in effort for the food that you eat. And you look at now in our modern society, you don't even have to get out of a car at a drive-through. And you're getting just so many calories in for no calories out, basically. And I just thought it's like a good thing, I think, to work for your food and at the very least see where it comes from and see how it's made, and just homesteading in general. It gives you such insight into things like that. And then spiritually, it's an amazing lifestyle. And then communally, like meeting people like you in my community and the Farmstead Forum, and how you are bringing people together in a community around homesteading. I think it's such a win-win-win lifestyle for so many reasons.
I do like that you mentioned the spirituality side of it. I think the more that I heard somebody else mention this at a recent festival that I went to, but there's probably going to be a lot of farmers in heaven, because you can't help but just be in awe of, you know, the cycle of life, where our food comes from, how things are intricately designed. It speaks to, you know, the existence of a great God that we serve, and we're being good stewards. Even processing chickens, you're being good stewards of what God has given you, the ability to do that, and you are honoring the life of that animal when you do raise them humanely and harvest them humanely. Really, you're just being a good steward of what God has already given us. So I do like that you mentioned that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I will just say, I feel like I'm on my own personal faith journey. And like you said, just being a part of the process of cycles in nature. And just, I feel like Homestead puts you so much closer to all of that. I mean, even just like walking around your garden in the early mornings, you can't really deny that there's got to be something bigger out there. I mean, the change in the seasons, it gives you such a richness to life and such an appreciation for a higher power, really.
Yes, for sure. So I didn't ask you about, let's just say, if you are raising your chicks and chickens as they get bigger and more messy, you're raising them in your backyard of a neighborhood. You know, you and I are out in the country. We have a little less worry about homesteader homeowners association and that sort of stuff. Are you able to recommend anything to keep the smell down or the flies, if those are an issue when they get closer to like harvest time? Was there anything that you found that helped with that, or was it not much of an issue for you?
Definitely. And I feel like I have a unique perspective on that because we started this whole homesteading journey very much in a neighborhood. There wasn't exactly an HOA, it was kind of an older neighborhood, but we had to be mindful of our rooster crowing, the smell, definitely, just not bothering neighbors with this interesting lifestyle. So I would definitely say, as Joel Salatin said, rest and sanitation. So moving animals often and letting the sun sanitize where they just were, putting them on new grass, sometimes even twice a day, is definitely going to really, in my opinion, eradicate any issue of sanitation. It works wonders what moving animals daily can do. I mean, I would say in our experience, there really is no smell. And I've heard Justin Rhodes say a million times, if you have smell, you have a management problem. And I
Yes.
find that to be, I find that to be so accurate. And then as far as flies, I think that kind of goes hand in hand. If you are not leaving your animals too long for their manure to really build up, flies just kind of have nowhere to hatch out their eggs. So yeah, just moving your animals a ton, like Joel Salatin and Justin Rhodes say, it's so true.
I'll also just chime in about the fly issue. There is a type of bird that loves to eat flies. But again, like you're saying, if you're following sanitary procedures, you shouldn't be having to worry as much about flies because it shouldn't be an issue. But I think it's called the swallow. And then there are bird houses that you can buy that are specifically like a swallow birdhouse and put them on around your yard, just to welcome those birds and help with any fly issues. That's good for other livestock too, because sometimes, you have a fixed pen for livestock, and now you have pigs, right? You've got some pigs. Are they attracting the flies yet?
I was going to say, chickens haven't really been a problem in terms of flies, but these pigs love to make a wallow. And so they're bringing definitely more flies. So I am like writing down what you're talking about. We need more swallows in our
That
yard.
would really get a homeowners association up in arms if you had pigs in your backyard.
Pigs would be hard to have in a homeowners association.
That's just one tip. I think they would say a hard no to that. Also, talking about other ways to improve like the health of your flock. Have you ever tried fermented feed?
Sorry, you're sort of breaking up. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I think so. About fermented feed, I actually just started 24-hour fermentation of our pig feed, and that seems to be working out great for us. You mentioned that to me a couple months ago, and I thought that was a great idea. It's just a matter of like, am I organized enough to remember to wet my feed every evening? But yeah, we've been loving that.
Now, I imagine you can't do very many days at a time, but I was reading a book about fermenting the feed, and if you add apple cider vinegar to the water, you can actually do a couple days at a time. I did too much and my feed molded, so I would just say maybe do 2 or 3 days at a time at the most. Especially pigs are going to eat a lot, so you may only have to do it like every other day.
Did you say apple cider vinegar will aid in the fermentation? Like it'll speed it up?
It will help keep it from spoiling as it's fermented. Okay. And so because of the probiotics in your mother of the apple cider vinegar, like you want to get the good stuff that's organic, that has the mother in the apple cider vinegar, it'll help preserve by fermenting the whole batch, I guess, better. When I was reading about how to, and then you wouldn't want to mix regular water because the chlorine and water, or at least let your water sit out for 24 hours. So that way the chlorine would dissipate and evaporate from your water you were going to use I would think that would help with the fermentation process.
Okay. I'm like taking notes during this podcast because you are always a wealth of information.
No, well, I don't have pigs, and I certainly have never raised backyard chickens. So you've got me on multiple fronts. I'm just glad to share information, and this is about our listeners, and we're all just learning. So, but definitely we're excited to learn about this. And my goal at some point, I have a beautifully manicured lawn, y'all, but I think that if we do meat birds at my house at the Faulkner farm, we're going to have to put them in the woods. So my goal at some point, I have some netting, I have poultry netting from Premier One, and my goal is to put them out in the woods and move them. So I hope that would be, that would pan out, but that's for another year. It's another year's goal. So I was going to ask you about your social media stuff. You want to talk a little bit about your YouTube channel?
Sure. So I am almost a year into my YouTube journey. I have just a channel. You can search Allie Lothman to find me on YouTube. And I basically just document the process of building a homestead from scratch is what I say. But really it's just, we're basically two city slickers that kind of woke up to a lot about our food system, about the medical system, about the education system, all of these things that sort of go hand in hand with this lifestyle. And we decided to move out here to the country, and we are growing a ton of our own food, our own meat. As Emily mentioned, we got 2 pigs for land clearing and eventually for meat. So we're kind of like diving all in, doing the whole thing. We have a 1.5-year-old little girl, and yeah, we just want her to have access to high quality, clean food. And as time goes on, it seems like the only way really, besides supporting local farmers, that you can get the type of food that we're looking for is growing it in your own yard. And I hope that my YouTube channel just encourages people that it's really not as hard and complicated as it might first appear. And that if I can do it, seriously, anybody can do it. So yeah, go check out my YouTube channel.
Yes, you guys follow her, like and subscribe, all the things. She's also on Instagram and Facebook under Allie Lothman. And if you would like to meet Allie in person, she's going to be doing our Farmstead Farm workshop on November the 6th. If you guys are interested in registering for that workshop, soon and very soon, I will be sending out the emails for registration. So we have a very limited number of spots. You guys can take 2 meat birds home. You can bring a partner. So each registration slot will qualify you to bring 2 people. You'll get 2 non-GMO pasture-raised chickens and have fun and probably network and meet some other homesteaders while you're at it. So
yes, I am super excited for the Farmstead Forum workshop, and that will be me alongside my husband, Chance, and we will be walking you through the whole process of harvesting meat birds. And yeah, it's going to be amazing. I'm super excited for that workshop.
Well, thank you so much, Allie, for coming on the show. We are just thrilled to finally finish this podcast recording, and we just appreciate you. I'm sure we'll have you back in the future for another topic. I would love to hear what happens with your pigs, because eventually that's going to be, I'm sure as they get bigger, like I want to hear how you actually get them to the processor, or if you do it yourself and how that goes.
Absolutely. That is going to be a wild ride. I'm sure of it.
Well, thank you so much. And we look forward to having you back in the future. And you guys, thank you for listening.
Yes. Thank you so much, you guys. And I hope to see you at our workshop at the Farmstead Forum this November.
And if you guys want to check out, we have early bird tickets that are still on sale for the Farmstead Forum, November 7th and the 8th in Carrollton, Georgia. We are going to have the venue 1625 again for this year. If you would like our tickets, they're on our website at www.farmsteadforum.com. Go and get your early bird tickets, for they end at the end of August is the last date for the early bird ticket discount of $100 per adult ticket. Thank you guys for listening. We'll see you next time.
Bye.
Hey, thanks for listening. Join our Facebook group and follow us on Instagram for the latest updates. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and visit our website for upcoming events. For sponsorship opportunities, reach out to us through our website. See you next time.